this thing is recording.
All right.
Welcome, and who are you?
I am Travis Gatesman.
Do you have a middle name, Travis?
Lee.
Lee. Okay. Cool. That's a normal middle name.
Yeah.
When's your last ride?
Virtual
or real?
Last ride.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a bike commuter, so my last ride was heading back home from work.
Okay.
On my commute.
How long was your commute?
It ends up being just under 6 miles.
Okay.
So it's not too bad. Usually takes me about 25-ish minutes.
Is there a time when you stop commuting in the year? You just try to commute all the
No,
year?
actually I've been bike commuting now since like 2018.
Okay.
So yeah, for a long time, all year round.
Wow.
So yeah, I've got enough gear now that rain or shine, hurricanes, what have you, the wind, whatever, I usually make it in. I have some backup plans if things get rough, but yeah.
All right. So how'd you get into biking? Let's just go with that.
Yeah. So I feel like, growing up, obviously I rode my bike a ton as a kid, grew up in Western Pennsylvania. But actually what I would say a true cyclist or cycling came from, I'm from a running background. So when I was marathon running, some of the guys that I was running with, they were more into triathlons.
Okay.
And so they kind of got me into, in the off season mostly, they were riding, and that's kind of where I started picking it up. And I was borrowing a bike from a neighbor to ride with them, and then ended up buying that bike from my neighbor, and that was kind of how it started. I'm
guessing that neighbor was also tall.
Yeah, he was. He was he was a tall guy, just like me. Yeah.
And how tall are you, by the way?
I'm a good 6'4", mostly 6'5", depending on the shoes. Yeah. I measure at 6'4", so yeah.
I asked that because clearly you would require a taller bike.
Yeah.
And so that's super lucky that you had a neighbor who was of a similar size.
That's right. Use a bike. It's tough to find. Trust me. 64 centimeter bike is not. That's a larger size. Yeah. Not the easiest thing to come by.
So in your you knew some guys you were running and they did triathlons. So in the off season you started doing some biking and you bought this bike from a neighbor.
Yeah.
That you had.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. How long were you borrowing the bike before you actually decided to purchase it?
Oh man, that's a really good question. He ended up moving. He was a medical resident, and he ended up moving to Indiana, I think. Okay. And when he went to move, that's when I was like, hey, you gonna take that bike with you? Might as well leave it here.
Okay. Now, when you started riding, when you started riding the bike, how'd you feel about the riding? Were you like, this is great, or this is just to help bridge the gap for when I start running more again? What was the thought when you started riding?
Yeah, I kind of had a knack for riding. Okay. So when I was riding with these folks, and you'd come to some climbs or whatever, I would just zip up them. Yeah, I had some really powerful legs is what I found out. And they were like, man, you could always ride instead of run if things went south for the running side. Yeah. Which ended up to kind of predicting the future a little bit. But yeah, I had a knack for it. I really liked it. I mean, like I said, I grew up riding. Okay. As a kid, we rode all through the neighborhood, and it was just a matter of, and I had a bike. Yeah. It's just I wasn't seriously riding. Yeah. You know what I mean? Until I was riding with these folks that were more serious, and then realized that it's,
How long were you running marathons? How many years were you running marathons?
So I started running, I think my first marathon was in 2007, 2008. Okay. And I've run about 15 marathons, 16 marathons, somewhere in that range. So I think I got to maybe 8 or 9 years of running marathons. Okay. And I started getting some pretty bad Achilles Achilles tendonitis
Okay.
on both sides.
Okay.
And that kind of swayed me into cycling more and more because I was kind of running through my injuries and yeah,
right.
I needed a reprieve
Try
from
something
running.
else.
Yeah.
Okay. So the biking happens. Do you know around what time the biking you got the bike from the neighbor?
Yeah, that actually was. So there was I got that bike from the neighbor probably around, maybe like 2010 ish.
Okay.
And then I actually got into an accident, wrecked that bike.
Okay.
And then there was a hiatus. That was in 2011, near the end of 2011. And there was a hiatus where I didn't have a bike for a while.
Okay.
And then I ended up realizing that I really enjoyed the biking and ended up.
Okay.
The next bike came from a Craigslist purchase.
Okay. Both of these were road bikes.
Yeah.
Drop handle.
Yep.
Okay.
Both of them were road bikes for sure. Yeah.
What was a Craigslist purchase? What was that bike?
Yeah, that was a Trek 1.2. I think it was a 64 centimeter. I met a guy in a storage facility.
Yeah.
It was one of those stories that you hear, but it was fine. It was a good bike. It was aluminum frame. It was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So then I really started getting into cycling a lot more with that bike.
Okay.
And then that's when I really started to appreciate, the quality of bike, that can get you, the components and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so the bike I have now, the Trek Amanda, it was good to make a purchase after I had a bike and after I had seen what other people had and kind of experimented. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that it was a good thing.
Yeah.
And so it was a solid bike.
Okay. I imagine the Trek Amanda had to be at like light years ahead of the
bike. Yeah. When I got on that bike, I felt like I was like I was so fast and so light, and it was like I didn't even have a bike underneath me. It was an amazing transition. Yeah.
So 2010, 2011 accident, wreck, bike, right? And you're without a bike. You then get the Craigslist bike, the Trek 1.2.
Yeah.
And you're riding that around for a while before you get the Trek Amanda. So when you have the Craigslist bike, that's just to call it.
Yeah.
Like what kind of riding were you doing? Were you just like group rides?
Yeah.
Or like what were you doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I got that Trek bike, that's like I said, that was just like when I was really getting into road cycling. So this is when I started to do some of the larger rides around, like Storming Thunder Ridge and Cap to Cap. I did my first Cap to Cap ride on that Trek, and just experimenting with little longer stuff.
Okay.
I did have that bike on I did use it on the trainer as well and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of when I got that one, that was when I realized, because I didn't have a bike, and my desire to keep biking when I got that was pretty good at that point. So it was like, it was full on, whatever I can get into.
Okay. Whatever riding you can get into. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you find there was anything you enjoy? I mean, I know you mentioned you were doing well with the climbing. Did you find that you were enjoying like going really fast? Did you enjoy the endurance of like climbing a mountain for a long time? Like, was there something, or was it just everything just seemed awesome? Like,
well, I always felt like coming from a marathoning background and a running background, I felt like what I gravitated to was those like harder endurance, like almost like a time trial type thing. So even though I'm a larger person, I felt like these longer climbs, I could put out a lot of power for a significant amount of time. So I did gravitate towards climbs and that sort of thing. The speed and that sort of stuff, I'm not a sprinter by no means, but I ride pretty quickly. Even in my leisurely riding, I ride pretty, I end up going pretty hard. It's one of those things like if I'm not in a group, I tend to go faster and faster and faster,
Really?
ride harder and harder. I don't take it easy. I just keep pushing myself, I guess.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah, whenever I chose rides and stuff when I was looking for like larger rides, it was like, Mountain Mama and Storming Thunder Ridge and Agony in the Alleghenies and these sort of bigger climbing type rides. Yeah.
Were there any of those rides that you recall during that time that were like really challenging, despite you still being skilled at?
Oh yeah.
Like what's one of those rides that was just like really challenging? It stood out, kind of thing. Do you
recall? Mountain Mama. When I did it, I was fairly new to understanding fueling.
Yeah. Okay.
So I went in full board all these things. I remember, for example, like my first cap to cap ride. I was in one of the front groups. I don't know if it was the front group or one of the faster groups, and they're all seasoned riders, and I'm just in there like I'm do whatever.
Yeah.
And they just kept going and rolled through the last like 3 sags, and I had no water, and I thought I was gonna fall off the bike. I was so dehydrated, so I literally had to. I was 3 miles from the end of that ride. I literally had to pull off to the side, get off my bike, and sit on the ground for a while because I was so dizzy. And I realized, see, these guys know how to fuel correctly.
Yeah.
And so, I think when I did Mountain Mama, that was one of those scenarios too, where I thought I knew what I was doing, and I was with a lead guy, and riding with him, and we kind of were talking and stuff most of the way, and I hit a wall. It was, I was just done, and he just kept going. And so the last sag, I stayed there for a long time and took on fuel and stuff. But so that it was difficult. The climbing was obviously difficult. It's like 10,000 feet of gain. Yeah. But it was a lot of the times that I struggled, it was mostly because of my, I wasn't prepared or didn't know what I was doing.
How'd you figure out what was working fueling wise? How'd you pick that up? Did you talk to people, research what?
Yeah, I did. I talked to a lot of folks. Even the home roads ride with Ben King. I talked to Ben King about it. Yeah, okay. I was like, Ben, I need some help with this fueling thing. But well, it's almost the same with marathon running. I always felt like, because of my size, that I sweat a lot, a lot of volume comes out of me. So I feel like it is the same way, where I had to learn to take on a lot more fuel than what I normally would think. But I realized on the bike, you could take a lot of solid foods on, and that was a game changer. So, I'm a little bit more diligent about how much time has passed before I, take on a bar or something like that, rather than, I think at the time I only knew running. So it's gels and these quick fuels that don't last that long. And for me, and the later, the several hour rides, I need more substantial food is what I learned. And it was more or less just being more cognizant of it. Okay. And actually keeping track of where you are and how much you took and how much time has gone by. Okay. Because I was in the moment. I feel good right now, so I don't need to take anything right now. But then on the bike, if you tip over that edge, it's over.
You've already.
You can't catch up. Yeah.
And it was interesting to figure that out. I did not come from a running background, but yes, understanding the eating stuff is not real. I mean, clearly you want to, if you're hungry, you need to eat now, but it's to prevent the hunger 20, 30 minutes from now kind of thing.
That's what I had to learn.
So what did you start taking with you on the rides? What were the solids that work for you?
When I first started, I'm not exactly sure what it was. Now I'm a real big fan of picky bars. They're the right size, and they seem to chew up really well. And there's different flavors, and I really like them. I feel like, and fig bars. I feel like those are good too. So those are what, and if a little peanut butter and jelly sandwich is always nice
Right.
too, but that sometimes
great,
isn't in
yeah.
the cards. But yeah, now the go-to that I do is, and I think probably back then it was probably more like power bars or something like that. You know, a basic. It was just more like a bar form rather than. But I do like picky bars tend to be my go-to.
Okay. And so the fueling you've got figured out now, like you understand what you.
I think so. I mean, every time, sometimes it's your body throws a curveball at you, and you think you have it figured out, but yeah, no, I would say the last several times I've done, you know, century rides or whatever, I feel like my fueling was good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because bonking is not great.
No. No.
Do you take electrolytes?
Yeah, I do. One of my bottles is usually beta fuel. It's loaded with carbohydrates and it's got some protein in it too. So, you know, I'm getting some off of that as well.
Okay.
It's got some electrolytes in it too, but that's been, I haven't experimented a whole lot with that besides, you know, Gatorade and those sorts of things. But when I tried that for the first time, I was sold.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this stuff it's good. It seems it feels like I'm getting something when I'm drinking it.
Okay.
And it lasts pretty good.
Okay.
So, and it seemed to be working. Yeah.
Okay. And that makes sense. Like if you find a thing, it works, like just stick with it.
Yeah.
Just buy the same flavor the whole time kind of thing.
Yeah. It's kind of expensive at times, but you can get deals on it and get it, and it works out.
Beta fuel, okay. And I think that's the first time I've heard of beta fuel.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the first time I've heard that. I heard of picky bars though. And of course I know fig bars because you know different brands of fig bars.
Yeah.
And those are
I do the baked naturals fig bar. They're the organic ones. Okay. I don't know if that matters, but it's not like Fig Newton brand. It's the baked.
I'm trying to think if I've probably seen the.
I'm sure you have. Those are nice because there's 2 little fig bars in a package, and you can pop one of them out, keep the package for later, and eat that one in one bite.
Nature's Bakery?
Yeah, Nature's Bakery.
Okay.
That's the one.
I've had those. I've been to several events and had those there. Those are good. I do feel like I need to hydrate more though because they're dry.
That's true. You do have to have a decent amount of fluids on you to. Yeah, that's a good point.
So you've gotten into biking. You're doing big events, Stormy Thunder Ridge, Mountain Mama. You figured out your weren't doing so well with the fueling. You kind of dialed that in a bit more as you conversated with some people. At what point? Because we talked about it. Like, at what point do you get the trainer? Did you decide let's figure this out. So when I got that bike, the Craigslist bike. Yep.
I had a dumb trainer, which is as for everybody out there, it's a trainer that doesn't give you any power numbers. And so I had a trainer wheel that I put on the back of my bike that just powers the trainer, and you change your gears to get whatever resistance that you're looking for. So I started on Zwift with that probably somewhere, you know, when I got that other bike. I started Zwifting in 2018. I think it was like in October-ish of 2018.
Okay.
On the dumb trainer.
Okay.
And I have been on there for a long time. And then I didn't get my smart trainer until I was starting to get serious about. I was seeing all these racing events, and I was seeing a lot of teams on there. Yeah. And I got really curious, really, really curious.
Teams on Zwift.
Yeah, on Zwift.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So wait. So you're riding, like, how frequently were you on Zwift with the dumb trainer? We're like once a week.
Oh no, more than that. I was probably 4-ish times a week.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so. So I was doing long rides on the weekends, kind of how I am now. I do a long ride outside usually on the weekend, and in the mornings, early in the morning, I ride indoors.
Okay.
Just for my family and my work. So I get my workout done in the morning before everything happens, and then I come home and I don't have to work out or anything anymore. So I've always been one to either run or ride early in the morning to get it all kind of out of the way.
Okay.
So when I wasn't running anymore because of my Achilles issues, the next best thing was getting on Zwift and riding.
Okay. So you have the dumb trainer. You're riding on Zwift primarily in the mornings.
Yeah.
But then long ride outdoors on the weekend. Okay.
Yeah.
So you start using Zwift. Are you just like hitting ride and just like riding, or you doing like what did you find that you were doing?
Yeah,
with that?
So I man, early on, it's like all the things that Zwift has to offer, right? So there was the badges that you're trying to get for the different routes, and then I really enjoyed the workouts too, like going into doing the workouts. Way back, I used to do some workouts just with a regular video. I can't remember what those were called, but so when I got on there, I was doing that, and then I got into some rides the rides that I liked were group rides, but they had a race component at the end.
Okay.
Where they would just be like, they would decide the last 5 miles or something. They go hard and actually race.
Okay.
And there was one every Wednesday. Okay. It was an Australian group that did it Wednesday mornings, and I was in that every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so that's when, when I was doing that and actually started racing with them at the end, that's when I started actually doing some of the races on there and signing up for Zwift Power and
you're
that sort of stuff.
But you're still on at this time you're still
on
the
the dumb trainer, yeah.
But did you so you have a speed sensor?
Did
you have a power meter?
Yeah, I had my power meter on my bike. So that was where it was becoming a little. I couldn't really race legitimately until I had something that was more reliable of a power source.
Yeah.
Because I think at the time I went through a couple of different power meters. I had the Garmin Vector power pedals, like the second generation of them or whatever.
With the little dangly pod?
Not with the dangly pod. The next Vector 2 or something, Vector 3. I can't remember.
The Vector 3, they did away with the pods.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Okay.
And those worked good for a while. Okay. And then they had battery connectivity issues, and I started experiencing that.
Yeah.
And then I got a Stages left crank arm.
Okay.
Which was great, but then I found out that I'm left leg dominant, so my power numbers were
higher than
higher than what they should have been.
Okay.
And I didn't feel like that was legit for me to be exploiting my stronger left leg.
Okay.
But honestly, I didn't get this smart trainer until whenever I looked into joining a team, a racing team. It was important to have a smart trainer and to be able to dual record and to show legitimacy of what you're capable of.
For anyone who's listening, was mentioning dual record is to have 2 separate power meter recordings, which is which would be one from the trainer and one to be able to have 2 different streams of power recording, which is one from the trainer and one from your power meter, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So my Wahoo Kicker has power that is being recorded from it to Zwift, and I was separately recording my power meter on my head unit on my bike.
Okay.
And then I would take those 2 files and you can upload them to Zwift Power, which is a separate website, and it'll actually overlay the 2 on top of each other, so you can see how accurate they are, how close they are to each other, and you want that to be obviously as close, as tight of a line as you can.
You've got before the kicker happens, you have the dumb trainer. You've got some power meters on. You got some power meters on the dumb trainer. You're doing races then, right?
Yeah, I was. Okay. Yeah.
but not with a team.
No
Okay,
team.
just individual races.
Yeah, and I couldn't, I wasn't on it. Yeah, I was just doing small races here
Okay.
and there, and yeah.
Did you enjoy? How do you feel doing that? Do you recall your first race? Do you recall roughly like what your first race experience on Zwift was like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to what most people experience, which is like everyone goes flying out the gate at 100 mile an hour and you get dropped. And then you're like, well, I missed that.
No one tells you that. No one tells you.
No one tells you that. But no, I think my experience in doing those sort of group rides going into races really helped me out because besides that small piece of knowing that people go out the gate hard, it's like running a 5K.
Yeah.
The rest of it is kind of what I already expected based on these sort of group rides. Is the pace was what I was expecting, and the finishes were what I was already kind of seeing. So, from there it was just a matter of figuring out, well, what am I good at and what am I not good at, and how can I win this race the best way I can.
The race tactics.
Yeah, the tactics.
I mean, I guess you'd done outdoor riding, so you already had a sense of, drafting. Did that come, I wouldn't say did that come easily. Did that make sense? Did you immediately start drafting off of people in Zwift when you had the chance, or did you eventually like, oh, I should shelter?
That is kind of an interesting question because I felt like I still had to learn that a little bit. Like in my mind, it's like, oh, you're in a race, so you got to go hard.
Yeah.
And so I ended up I was that guy that was leading all these races for the whole way, and then all of a sudden I came in like 20 something because they all flew by me. So I don't think it took me long because I realized, well, I'm burning myself out. Yeah. But it is one of those things you feel so fired up when you get on there. So you sometimes you can't curb the power that you're doing, and it's just kind of understanding that you can sit in the pack and save energy and then expend it whenever you need to. Yeah, that came along. The more races you realize, and the terrain of the races and stuff really help. And the other, the longer you're on Zwift, the more you've been on all the roads.
Yeah.
So the more exactly, you'd be like, oh, this course, I know how that finishes.
Yep.
I know how those rolling hills are. I know exactly how much power I need to get up over X climb.
Yeah.
So it's like that longevity helps a ton. Just knowing the courses and stuff. It's like you've already done your homework.
Yeah, that helps tremendously to know like how much of a kick is this going to be? Do you have to go up the leg snapper?
That's right. Kind of exactly. Thing? Like I know a lot of the climbs. I know almost to the percentage exactly how steep they get. Like just because we've ridden them so many times. Yeah. So it's So pack dynamics and knowing how that feels and knowing the courses is just super helpful.
Did you find your ability to climb translated to Zwift as well? Did you find that you were still just as good a climber? Yeah,
well, so I always like to tell, I gravitate towards Zwift, and I really, really like Zwift. I think mostly because, as you've seen, I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
So there's no wind. I'm not a sail like I am outside. So outside, it's a windy day.
You catch more of it.
You catch more of it, and on Zwift, there's they don't know how big I am, I guess, and so my draft is the same. So I can still put out the power. My watts per kilo is still there. Completely translates. But if I'm out ahead on a road ride, I'm feeling that wind a lot more. Maybe I'm just not positioned quite as well, but I am a bit of a sail in the real world, more so than I am in the Zwift world.
I'm guessing you've heard of Zwift Insider at this point. Okay. Zwift Insider did a test on height, and apparently it does have an effect in the game. ever so slightly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which was disappointing because I'm not a short person either. But yeah, Zwift Insider has done all this, all the test examples of like it has an effect in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, I believe that the understanding is that your weight has more of an impact.
Yes.
But the height has a minimal bit of impact.
And that's I believe that's accurate. They've done an amazing job at the details of draft and height and weight and all these sorts of things. But yeah, I feel, personally riding on there, I feel like, it's obviously it's a bit different than what you're outside. And, I do feel like I'm a bit of a sail more so outside.
No, yeah, I completely understand that because I'm like, can I shelter behind somebody? Why is everyone shorter than me?
Like I can be standing up on my bike in my basement, pushing on those pedals.
Yeah.
I can't be doing that outside and try to sprint because then I'll be taking in all the wind.
When you started racing, what category did you start racing in?
I think I was A. Okay. Right out the gate. Okay. Yeah. My watts are pretty high because I'm heavy. So like I said, early on I realized that I've got some pretty good power in my legs. I got big, strong legs, I guess. So yeah. So I think when I signed up onto Zwift Power, I don't think I've ever been a B. I was an A right out the gate.
And then for anyone who's listening, the categories go from category D, and I'm going to mess this up, is 1 to 2.4 watts per kilogram. Then there's a C category, there's a B category, and then there's an A category, which is like, what is that, 4 and up or something?
Yeah, and then there's A+.
A+, which I've not seen.
Yeah, there's A+.
As far as that's
so I teeter between A and A+.
Okay.
And mostly I become A+ when I do enough time trials.
Okay.
Because then it's gauged off of how many your last 3 months. There's got to be a certain amount of rides that you do that are above a certain amount of watts per kilo.
Okay.
And if I do enough individual time trials, I'm over that. I'm over that mark, and I end up being an A+ rider. But A and A+ are always grouped together in races. So there's no races just for A+. So A's and A+ can always race together, but A's and A+ can't go down to B. So that's where it divides.
Okay. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter if you're A or A+, to be honest. There are some team time trial categories that you can only have a certain amount of A+ guys versus A.
Oh, okay.
And that's really the only place I've seen where you'll have to be in a higher category if you have more than, I think, 2 or 3 A+ guys on your team.
So there's individual races that you're doing, we're doing, right? You had the dumb trainer, you get the kicker.
Yeah.
Do you immediately join a team? Like, how'd that happen?
Yeah, that was a fun experiment. So I knew a friend of mine that I was running with. He knew a guy in Williamsburg, Adam Ostott, and he noticed that we were doing similar races. And actually he asked me, hey, do you know Adam? And I was like, no, I don't. And so he said, well, he's on a team. You should look him up and see. And because I had asked him, I was talking to him about race teams too. I was talking to anybody that was on Zwift that I knew about race teams, and he gave me his number. And so we ended up talking, and for the next, I don't know, couple months or so, I felt like I was on this, like, on the hot seat. Like, they were evaluating my numbers and making sure I was okay. And that was really when I had the dumb trainer when I contacted him, and my racing team's called Relentless. And the one of their main things that they've always preached was transparency. So being able to prove that you're not cheating in any sort of way, always dual recording on races, take a video of you doing a weigh-in, your height, all of that stuff to make sure you're completely accurate and completely transparent. And so they said the only way you can be on this team is if you're able to dual record with a smart trainer. And I said, well, I'm getting a smart trainer. So I did a few races leading into, I think I ended up joining that team in February of 2021.
Okay.
So I kind of went through this, and they were looking at my numbers and making sure I was, I mean, it was, making sure I was legit. And then they pulled me in and said, welcome aboard.
Okay. Relentless is the name of the team, right? So you start doing some races with the team.
Yeah.
Wait. How are you faring on the individual races?
I was doing good. Okay. Yeah. So the individual races, like what I learned and why I was so interested in the races on a team is because the bigger races, they were all in like ZRL, which is the Zwift Race League.
Yep.
And you had to be on a team.
Yep.
So these bigger events, they were all being done or getting invited on through being on a team. And I was like, and I was doing off races here and there, and I was doing well. Like I was, I would win some here and there, but I wasn't, I was top 10-ish on a lot of them and doing pretty good. But there was some, there was something else. Like I was like, I want to even do more.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where I was at. I was just noticing that there was all these other races that I was intrigued about. And so that was kind of the motivation for it.
Okay. So you joined Relentless after going through the qualifying period or whatever.
Yeah. I joke with them because I felt like they strung me along for a while, but I think it was mostly just to make sure I had, that was fully transparent because my numbers were fairly large. And so they, for my 20 minute power and stuff were pretty good. So they wanted to make sure that I had a dual record that proved that I was really able to do that.
That's fair. It's Cat A racing. Yes, I would see putting a little bit more time into vetting the people who participate.
Yeah.
Because it's more serious, but I guess it is. Cat A, I see people are taking it a little more serious than a Cat D or C race kind of thing. So you joined the team. Did you immediately jump into Zwift Racing League or
Yeah, I think I did. I don't know if they put me on I was on the roster. Let's just say that. So we have the team's there's about 30 some of us on Relentless, and we've got B category all the way up to A plus category racers on the team. And I was somewhere in the middle to the upper end of it. So when I think that year we had a B team that I was my category was outside of them. And I think we only had one A team. So I was an alternate for those races, I think that first year.
Okay.
And I did get into some of them, and the team time trial, I was in on that right away.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of my bread and butter.
Yeah,
I mean, my power, my 20-minute power is strong.
Yeah.
So I remember going into doing a team time trial practice right away, like where we just kind of did a meetup and did it. And I was all over the place. I didn't know what I was doing. Like this was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
And it was exciting and it was fun. It was hard, and but it was a true team event, and that's that solidified why I wanted to do what I was doing. Because after I did, I was like, that was the coolest thing.
So for people listening, right, with Zwift, you can do races, but when we're racing, I'm at my home racing on my trainer and my setup, my computer, and another person's racing in their home. So y'all using Discord? Like how are you communicating?
Yep, we're doing through Discord. So just to put it all in perspective, so all sign up for the same time slot, a meetup or whatever, and we all are on Discord talking in real time with our headsets on or whatever. And and then from there, the team time trial goes, it's either 6 or 8 riders, and we usually have a position, like 1 through 6 or 1 through 8.
Yeah.
And depending on how strong you are, with our team, we usually pull anywhere between 30 seconds up front to a minute. Based on your FTP, your functional threshold power, you can kind of calculate how harder you do your pull.
Ooh, okay.
And then once you pull, you kind of drift off the pace line, and then you connect onto the back and you try to recover while you're in the group. Yeah. While the next person pulls, and you just keep rotating through. Okay. Until you get to the end.
So there's not so you all just know, like, I need to do 30-second pull and then drop off.
We usually count it down.
Okay.
Like, we're all talking in real time. So like, say I go up front and I'm pulling, I'll maybe say at 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 5, I'm off. Okay. And then the next person pulls through. So you try to time it so your whole group's not losing speed, and there's a lot of, and then dealing with the draft and trying to stay on the person's wheel, and so there's a lot of little nuances to it. It takes some practice, but it's a lot of fun because you're talking to teammates we have teammates all around the world, and it's just awesome that you can come together and we're all in our basements or a garage or a shed or wherever, a sunroom, living room, racing together.
Where are your teammates? Roughly, do you know, like, where some of them are located?
We're mostly East Coast, but we've got some in Michigan. We have some in Great Britain. We have some in some overseas guys in France and those sorts of things. And, but yeah, we have a person in Australia, one in Japan. If they're listening to this, they're going to be upset that I'm not naming all of them. But yeah, that's all right. So Midwest, some Midwest and East Coast mostly. But we got a few guys overseas. Out of those ranges. Yep. Because we mostly race the East Coast time zone.
So you're doing the race. And of course, I know there's not the time trial, but the points races. Points races. And then there's the sprint sections and KOMs. Like, how do you all, without giving out any secrets, right? Like, is there a strategy?
Absolutely.
To that, kind of thing?
Yeah. So we're in ZRL right now. The Zwift Race League started up. We're on the I think the 3rd race coming up. And we do our homework. So we look at the course, we look to see how it's laid out, and we look to see our personnel. So if it's a flat sprinters course and doesn't have any climbs or anything, they're not going to put me on that roster. They shouldn't, because I'm not a sprinter. So we put our sprinters in there and go that route. And if it's maybe a more rolling course, then I may get in there. If it's time trial, I'm definitely in there. We just basically look at who we have and decide. And then the other thing is there's first over the line points, and there's also fastest through the segment points. So someone like me, that even if it's a sprinter stage, if I can get out on a break, out on a breakaway, I can get across that line and still get points for the team, even though I'm not the fastest through the segment. So it all comes down to how you want it to look. So I love going out on the break sometimes, if that fits for what our goals are. But that's the learning curve stuff with racing with a team is, what do you go on a break? Who, if you have a teammate out on the break, you don't want to pull them back in. Who goes out on the break at what time? When do you attack? When do you not attack? And some of it has to be fluid, that we're talking as we're going, because even on the points races, we're still on Discord and talking on real time too. So that was a steep learning curve for me. I just had no idea how to race with a team.
Yeah.
You know,
and
it's more important for our team to do well than individually.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you have to do whatever you got to do to get them better, get them higher up on the podium.
How are you? What kind of headset are you using? Are you using like just?
I use a Shocks.
The
Open Comm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that the one with the mic? I think it's called Open Comm or something like that.
I know that they're bone conductive.
Yes. Yeah. It's the bone conductive Bluetooth headset with the one that they make has a little mic attached to it. It's got a little arm. Okay. I think it's called Open Comm.
Okay.
And this is my second one of them. Okay. My first one, I can't remember. It either wouldn't take a charge anymore, or one of the buttons got stuck or something. But it was under warranty, so they sent me a new one. But it's been awesome. Yeah. Like it sweat wipes off it. It doesn't have anything open. It's all closed up. It doesn't have any foam or anything on there, and I can hear things really, really well. And it's been, so yeah, I've really liked that as a headset.
I used one of those bone conductive headsets years ago. I think when they early came out, and I haven't thought of trying to use them again. I use my AirPods, which fit in my ear just fine. I've only had one occasion where one kind of like slowly popped out after a couple hours or something like that. But yeah, that's how I've been using with the Discord with the team,
I think that's fairly popular choice is the AirPods.
Bone conductive. Okay, I may have to look into those and see if that's a better sweat resistant option.
Sweat resistant option. For me the anything that went in my ear, they wouldn't stay in really right for me. So I needed something that would stay on my head and can be sweaty and still work.
Just fine. Okay.
So that seemed to be one I grabbed, and it was working out.
Okay. Have you gotten all the route badges? Have you tried to get how many? What's left?
I actually just got the last one, not that long ago. My last one. Yeah, I've gotten all the routes. This past year, I finished the PRL full, which is the one that, the 110 miler in London. That was brutal. Yeah. Just brutal.
Yeah.
And I had a few teammates pop in at different times and ride with me. Yeah. That made it 100 times better, 100 times more tolerable. But even when the last guy popped off, I still had like 10 miles to go or 15 miles to go, and those were the hardest ones ever. But the last one I had was one in France. It was one of the longer ones in France. It was like a 30 miler. Can't remember the name of it, but I knocked that off like a few weeks ago, actually.
Okay. Because that wouldn't go up Ventop.
No, it doesn't go up Ventop. Okay. It's the one that heads that way and then goes down the side.
Okay.
It's like, I can't remember.
Yeah, I know there's a 30-mile route in France.
Yeah, there's two of them. The one goes one direction. The other one goes, they basically do the same roads. It's that direction, but it's whichever direction that they go. And that was the last one I needed.
Okay.
And I knocked it off. So I've officially ridden until they come out with a new roads.
New road, yeah. Right.
I've officially ridden all the routes on Zwift.
Okay, nice.
And I just looked not that long ago. I'm at just over 25,000 miles on Zwift.
In 3 years?
Yeah, 25,000.
4 years?
And almost to 1 million feet of elevation climbing gain. So,
oh my God,
that's not so bad.
That's not bad.
That's a little bit, 25,122 and 991,240 feet of elevation gain.
So I'm guessing you have the Tron bike at this point now.
Okay, I've had the Tron bike for quite a while.
Okay, all right.
I have basically everything you can buy besides you don't want to buy a bunch of bikes and stuff in there, because then you can't get to the ones you want to get to quickly.
Lots of drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the best setups, I think it's like you have to be like level 40 to get the very best setup or something like that.
Exactly. So the disc wheels, the DT Swiss wheels are 45, I think, and that's the one. Those are the fastest wheels. So you got to be pretty high up to get those.
Okay. Can you use the Tron bike in the A races?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah. There's not a lot. I mean, now there's so many bikes on there that there's not a whole lot of courses out there that there's not a real bike setup that's either slightly better or as good as the Tron bike.
Okay.
So you really don't need the Tron bike anymore.
Okay.
Like it used to be like the king.
Yeah.
You know, particularly on like a rolling or a climbing type stage, but now
there's
with
other
the
setups.
With how many wheels are available and how many frames are available, you can set up. Like I don't remember the last time I actually raced with the Tron bike. To be honest with you, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In the for anyone listening, in Zwift you can buy different. They put real world bikes in the game. The Tron bike, which is called the Zwift Z1 concept bike, is the name of it. I believe
so. Yeah.
It is called the Tron bike because it is reminiscent of the light bikes from the movie Tron from whatever 1980 something.
Yeah, and then they remade it. Yeah, in the 2000 or something.
And then the wheels can change color, but it's the best looking bike in the game because you can change the colors of the wheels, they glow and that kind of thing.
It is a very beautiful looking bike.
But you have to climb 164,000 feet of climbing.
Yeah, you have to do the height of Everest, 5 times or 10 times or something like that?
I don't know.
So you do the Everest challenge on Zwift, but then you have to keep climbing.
Yeah.
And then it shows you climbing up into space. Yeah. And so you have to do that. I can't remember how many times you have to do the height of Everest, but
it's up there.
That's one that when you get on, you go to that challenge and you just start pumping away at it until you get it. Because it is a solid bike.
Yeah. I would say one, because it's a Tron bike as well. I felt less inclined to climb once I had that because
why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
The one badge I don't have is the masochist badge, which is like you have to climb.
Is it 5 or 25 times?
I think it's 25 times the Alpe de Zwift.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't need that. So I don't even know how many times I've climbed Alpe de Zwift. Maybe 10 times, maybe.
Okay.
I doubt I'm in double digits. I doubt it. So that one I'll just
let it sit.
I'll let that go.
That's a rough climb. I mean, it's definitely when you can do it. I'd say in an afternoon. That's not the right way to say it, but and then you can do it in under an hour. You can do it under an hour.
Yeah. It's the route from the start of the pen. You could usually a lot of people figure an hour, an hour and a half ish for average. But if you're racing it, you can get up there. Yeah, definitely less than an hour. Absolutely.
So what's your setup like with Zwift? You've got a bike on the kicker.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have when you set up? Like, what do you have? Like,
I got. I'm just set up in my basement. It's not like a fancy setup or anything, but I've got a big box fan on my right, blowing across my legs and stuff, and on my left I have a shelf, and that's where I have I run Zwift through a MacBook.
Okay.
Or Apple Air, MacBook Air. And and I have it HDMI cabled to a TV that's in front of me. It's like a 32 inch. It's not a massive TV, but it's good enough for this being right in front of me. And on that same shelf on my left is also where I have my beverage, my water, my morning coffee, my whatever I have for breakfast and that sort of thing is there. I have another fan kind of straight ahead and to the left, larger fan that's blowing right at me. And then I have another smaller fan to the right on the right side of the TV that blows over too.
Okay.
So I've got three fans, the TV, and I did put a little back lighting behind the TV, so adds a little something.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And then I have tried to decorate the area. I took a lot of my old running bibs, and I made my wife made a collage of all my running numbers from. Not all of them, but most of my marathon bibs, and some of my collegiate ones that I had, and made a collage there. And then I have some running trophy or riding awards and stuff that I've gotten for different things and stuff. So I have a little memorabilia type thing there. Okay. And then my hookup.
How long did it take you to get that many fans down there? Did you get on the trainer and like immediately set up fans down there, or did you how long before you started putting
sweat
fans?
until you dump so much sweat down you realize you need them? Yeah. I think the third fan I just got this year. Okay. I realized that. So what was happening is the way I had my fans set up. It's kind of silly, but like in the summertime, I had one blowing across from the right, and then I had one blowing kind of catty corner from the left. Sure. And I realized that my whole right arm and upper right body was just like dumping buckets. Like it was a big sweat pool under my right side, but not on my left side. Okay. It was crazy. So I was like, I just need another movement of air coming across that right arm. Yeah. And I think I'll be good. And so so I bought a little fan just to blow across that right arm, because my hand, it sounds silly, but you realize that once everything gets wet, your ability to hang on to the grips and stuff gets down, and then you don't want to, your bike can only handle so much sweat, and you gotta keep that dry as much as possible. So I try to do a diligent job of cleaning it up afterward and everything. So I felt like I needed to kind of make sure I'm not sweating all over it too much.
Are you using the companion app as well?
Yeah, I have the companion app hooked up to a cable that I keep on there's another smaller shelf right above where I have my computer, and I have it sit there so I can grab it quickly and do whatever I need to do on it. Okay. Quad Lock
sells a front mount that you can put your phone in. And I'll show it when we get finished with this. But they sell all kinds of different iPhone and other Android phone cases, but it looks just like your bike computer mount. Yeah. Hooks onto your handlebars. You put your phone in the case, and it locks into place there, just like your bike computer would.
Yeah, I think I've seen those.
And that's been great, because I think I had some really bootleg thing that's strapped it down with rubber bands on my stem, and then found this, and it's great because it's right in place, right where the bike computer would be. Yeah. So mention that too as well.
Yeah, I have my bike computer on there to dual record.
Okay. Right.
On the handlebar too, and I also have a it's called a commander. Okay. It's actually a button that I can Bluetooth to the computer, so I can launch my power-ups from a button on my handlebars. Ooh. So rather than reaching over and hitting spacebar or whatever, I can literally keep my hands on the handlebars and just
launch your power.
Hit it with my thumb or whatever.
Okay, nice.
So that's been a slight pro tip. Anyone listening? That's been a bit of a game changer in a hard, fast sprint. But what I've learned is that if I Bluetooth too many things together, I've had some dropouts. So I had to go to Antenna Plus from some of my hookups between my trainer and my laptop. Okay. So I need to figure out a way to still Bluetooth that with the Antenna Plus or the other one. I'll figure it out. I don't know if that's possible.
I think you've got too many Bluetooth connections in there. Your MacBook is going to be great with the Bluetooth connections as opposed to a PC.
Yeah. I think maybe I just overreacted in the one time I had a dropout in a race. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with Bluetooth. And I abandoned it, but I realized that shouldn't have been an issue. but anyway, yeah, those they make all these sort of like aftermarket buttons and stuff that you can have that you can
I did not know that.
hook up to your, and it's basically an extension of a keyboard, but it's a single button.
It's just,
I mean, there's actually two buttons on it. One, if you hit it, you can change your camera angle.
Okay.
And the other one, you hit it, is the power up, which is the only thing we got it for.
Okay. The kicker bike I have has one of the buttons.
Oh yeah.
Automatically does power. But then one of the buttons does a power up, and I don't know which one. One of them does a U-turn, which is like not great.
Yeah, you don't want that.
I've had that happen. I was doing.
Oh man.
I was doing a route, and hit the button, thinking I was hitting my power up, and did a U-turn. But then I did another U-turn immediately after, and still got credit for the badge.
Oh,
so
no
like,
way.
It was just like. It was somewhere near like the base of the Alpha Zwift, and I did a U-turn and then did another U-turn. It still worked out.
Wow.
Don't know. Don't care.
Sweating bullets on that one.
Yeah, because I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been devastating.
Either way, I had a friend who just did the PRL full on Saturday.
Yeah.
She started at 6:30 a.m. and I started riding with her in her meetup, and I had a 9 a.m. ride. So I rode with her for like an hour. I rode with her for 2 hours.
Awesome.
To about 8:30, and that's when I dropped off. But he finished the PRL full, hours later.
It is a amazing accomplishment for anyone to finish that sucker. And any help is really, really good to give.
The PRL full is a Zwift attempt to recreate the Prudential Ride of London. In the game, but it's an 11-mile lap, which includes a climb up a box hill, and you just keep doing this lap like 11 or 12 times, whatever, to get to 110
and that climb
miles.
is fairly significant. Yeah, like it's not a short climb.
No.
And so it's a long, it's a slug. That was obviously by far my longest ride ever on Zwift.
Yeah,
and it was my second longest ride I've ever ridden in my life, even outside. Yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So you got the Century jersey as well. That was your first time getting that as
well? No,
I
had the Century jersey before. I mean, I've ridden over 100 miles, but that was what the PR was like 110 or 111. Mm-hmm. So I was not going that far on a Century ride. But no, I would say I've done less than a handful of Century rides on Zwift, I think.
Okay.
Probably right around there, about 5 or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those were like, they closed voluntary, but like, you just like, I'm just going to do 100, or just, like, it just kind of happened?
Yeah, a couple of them just kind of happened.
Okay.
And other ones I was more focused on the time on the bike, and less of the distance. Like I was like, okay, I want to get, I want to at least get 4 hours or something. And ended up getting into a group that's going pretty quick, or it was a flat route, and then you end up knocking it out. A couple of them were, I did a longer group ride, and I just felt good afterward. Yeah, and it's like, okay, I'll just hang on here and just punch it out and do it. But yeah, some of them were intentional, some were not.
Okay. What are you're still using the same fueling? You still using the beta fuel and fig bars and everything?
Yeah, the beta fuel, I only use that when I'm doing on the indoor rides, I don't do the beta fuel usually. I'm not sure why. I mean, beta fuel I don't usually go to unless I'm going to do like almost 3, unless I know I'm going to do like 3 hours or more. Okay. Like it's so thick. Yeah. And it's pretty dense. Yeah. But mostly indoors, I have obviously water. I usually have just Gatorade as my fuel. But ahead of a longer ride on Zwift, I'll literally sit down and count up how many bottles I need and how many bars and sandwich, whatever, and set it all up. But most of the stuff I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is pretty short. Okay. So I maybe have one emergency piece of food there if I needed. But otherwise, it's just a bottle of water, and that's about it. Most of the races we do are, almost all of them are inside of an hour. Okay. Most of them are around that 45-minute-ish thing. So if you're racing hard, you don't really need to take on a whole lot of a whole lot of fuel or anything in that amount of time for what we're doing.
Now, clearly I can talk about Zwift forever.
Yeah.
And we're going to get back to it, so not to get away from it, but do you feel your need for speed is satisfied with the Zwift racing, or because you've done some outdoor racing, right?
Yeah.
A few of those. Do you feel it's like the indoor racing, like it does what you need to do? Is it racing everywhere? Like, tell me about your outdoor racing. And then we'll get
so outdoor racing, I've done a handful of races that, like, I did not that long ago. I did a gravel race up in Maryland, and lots of climbing. It was called the Gonzo Torture Race, of all things. The name is absolutely fitting. And I did it with a Zwift teammate, Chris Pruitt, and it was rough. I mean, it was really, really hard, and but it was extremely rewarding because you're just battling out there. And then I did another one that was more like it was another one in Maryland where it had, I think it was like 4 or 5 segments that they time you in, and they take your total time, and that's how you place. So it's not an overall time. And then I did Agony in the Alleghenies was another one. It wasn't set up. It wasn't like advertised as a race, but there was an overall winner, and there was a single segment climb winner as well. And that one was awesome. So out of all of those, I liked that one the most. The gravel race, I felt like I didn't have the right setup. My gravel bike, I have a Specialized Diverge. And my tires, I have 42s on it, so they're pretty wide. And it's a fairly heavy bike. And that gravel race had about 60% that was still road, and some really punchy climbs, short punchy climbs. And like I talked about before, outside on some of these climbs and keeping in the draft on a gravel bike with these guys on roads, it was just, I kind of fell off the lead pack fairly early, but I did pretty good overall, not so bad. And my numbers I was putting out, I was super happy with. And then the race that I did with the segments, I just went into it like I was the guy that led everybody into the segment, and then ended up being on the back because they all sprinted past me, and so I ended up getting the one of the slower times through each segment. But because I was more like focused on doing the whole ride and not really the segments themselves. So I didn't in between the segments, no one was. It was just like this leisurely stroll, and I was like, that's not really my jam, So I do like. I think going forward, I do like the bigger rides. If they had them as races, then that's cool too. I did do an individual time trial on my road bike out in Chesapeake. And this past year, and I loved it. Like that was my jam. But I didn't have a TT bike. It was just my regular bike, and I rocked it. So it was right up my alley. But I realized being in the crouched, leaning over your handlebars down in that aero position, it's pretty tough to generate the power numbers that you would on the indoors, right? Because you can stand up, you can kind of get positioned the way you want it, but when you're crunched over your handlebars, it's a little bit hard to do. So I could see myself doing more of that, doing the individual time trial type stuff, and I'll probably end up doing more of those longer rides, but I don't. The other stuff I'm not so sure. So she's like just putting the watts down if you're doing the time trial. Yeah,
just
putting the watts in. Just cranking watts. Powering small countries.
How big was the field for the time trial?
Say that again.
How big was the field? Like how many other people were there?
There was a decent amount, but they were all categories. It was a USA Cycling sanctioned individual time trial. So I was in the non-TT bike non-aero helmet bike
Okay.
time trial category. So it was
Yeah.
like all the people that show up with the road
Whatever
bike.
they have, yeah.
And the one I show up, and the one other guy shows up from the Richmond area. Now I can't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I saw him, I was like, well, I'm vying for second.
Yeah.
And he shows up without his TT bike. So he's in my same division, and
Yeah.
he's just a
Strong
really
rider.
good, real strong rider.
Okay.
And he rides for Kelly tires or whatever, the green kits that you might see around.
I've seen that.
But yeah, he destroyed it. Like he was beating most of the categorized people
Okay.
on the on their
time
TT
trial. Yeah.
bikes. Like
Okay.
he just destroyed it. But I came in second behind him.
Okay.
And my goal was to average. I had two goals. One was to get over 400 watts, average over 400 watts.
Okay.
And the other one was to average 25 miles per hour.
Okay.
I was 24/7, and I was 370 some watts.
Okay.
So I learned that being over my bike in that position, it was a little harder to
Okay,
hit
to put
those,
that out.
hit over 400. But the speed I was able to do well. So
Okay.
it was on the Dismal Swamp Trail.
Okay.
It's just really
Very good.
flat. But there's a gradual kind of uphill going out. There's gradual hills both directions.
Okay.
It goes down, then it kind of goes up, and then you turn around and it does the same. And there was a wind too. So with the conditions the way they were, I was super happy to be almost to 25, which would have
Okay.
been really cool.
What was the distance?
It took me 50 some minutes, like 40 some miles, I think.
Okay.
40-ish miles.
Is that right? Yeah.
Is that right? Do some math.
Yeah, it was like 24 miles an hour.
Yeah, I was 24/7, and
So
it
is
took
it-
me 50 some minutes or 50 minutes or something like that.
Why do I say that's
I can't remember.
Why do I feel like it's less than that time? That's less
Yeah,
than that distance. So
it's
20,
gotta be.
20 something miles.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably right.
Um,
Yeah. Yep,
20
20,
something.
yep.
Something. Okay.
20 something miles.
Okay. All right.
I don't remember.
And that's your time trial.
Yeah.
You think you would do some more of those?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's kind of where I excel. So, if I got myself a time trial bike, maybe we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We could dabbling on looking at that, and we'll see. Bikes are expensive.
How does how does your wife?
Yeah.
How does she feel about you like doing the Zwift racing like early in the morning kind of thing?
Well, a few times I've come upstairs and she's like, I thought I needed to call the ambulance because I thought you were dying in the basement, which is I think the same that most of the significant others on our teammates have all said that same thing.
Yeah.
No, I think, I've been doing this for quite a while, and, she realizes that that's kind of my outlet for athletics. And, I've been in something my whole life. I played basketball, I ran cross country, I ran collegiately, and then I did marathons, and then I moved to cycling, and there's always something. And Zwift is nice because you could do it year round, and you can, COVID comes through. I didn't miss a beat on Zwift. It's the same. Right. You just do it, and I feel like it's excellent for families. Because I can do my workout. I get done with my workout, and half the time, my wife and son are not even out of bed yet. Yeah, so. And I've already gotten in a good workout, so It works out. So they're not going to complain.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious how that would go with the pain.
The agony that comes out from the basement when I'm at the end of a race sometimes can be pretty dramatic.
We talked about your snacks. You use Strava.
Yeah.
Right. Did you immediately start using Strava when you started riding? Like
when I started riding, yeah.
Okay.
So I was a Garmin. when I ran, everything was
It's
Garmin.
Okay.
Yeah, Garmin Connect, and I was tracking everything through Garmin. And
Okay.
then I moved to Strava. Yeah, it was probably right around when I started riding again.
Okay.
And yeah, I like Strava. I feel like some of the segments are a little dangerous, to have that dangling out there and going through a town where there's intersections and stuff.
Yeah.
For cyclists, but it, what it does, I like Strava for its mapping functionality. I use that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I map a lot of my long rides through there, and and use its suggestions, and even when I go up to Pennsylvania where I'm from, I'll use it to help map some stuff up there, and so I love it for that.
Yeah. Popularity routing. That is what that is. What shows you
the heat maps and stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's super helpful.
Yeah. Strava. Do you take your bike with you on your non-cycling vacations?
Yeah. So when I go to Pennsylvania, I always take my gravel bike.
Okay.
In Western Pennsylvania, where I grew up, even on a map it says it's paved.
Yeah, you don't trust it.
It may not be paved, or it may be it used to be paved.
Yeah.
So you don't know what terrain you're going to get into.
Okay.
So I always doesn't matter, December, January, whatever.
Yeah.
Up there, I'll take it.
The gravel bike.
And if the weather's conducive for it, I'll ride on the gravel bike.
Okay.
But my road bike, I don't take it. I usually don't take it too many places. Obviously, if it's a bigger trip than that, I don't take my bike where I need to go. I still run, so if I go anywhere, I'll run, and I'll just take a break from the bike.
Okay. Earliest memory of riding a bike?
Oh man.
Like
way back in childhood.
Yeah, way back in childhood.
Yeah.
What's something
so
you recall?
I do recall growing up, whenever I lived on a very, rural street, it was just like in the woods all around or whatever. And there was my neighbor, I hung out with my neighbor, Joe Law, and we rode bikes in front of the house, and we could only go between there was Mark Oakes, who lived down here, and Mark Decken, I think was his name, on the other side. So I remember my parents saying, you have to stay between Mark and Mark's. Mark and Mark. And so I can only go from one driveway to the other driveway, and that was the span of the road that I can ride my bike back and forth between. Yeah. And that was probably the earliest that I remember. I remember my dad teaching me how to ride a bike, and he would just I have two older brothers. We're all the same. He just put us on the bike, and we have a hill in our front yard, and he would just basically just push us down the hill, and we'd ride as far as we could, and then we'd wreck. And we'd get back on the bike, walk it back up to the top, and he would do it again until we figured it out. And we'd go a little bit further. Each time we'd go a little bit further. It was so interesting way of learning how to ride a bike, but that was how it was on a grass hill.
Yeah.
Low center of gravity, so I guess you felt like if you rolled off, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah. At least it's on grass.
Yeah, it's grass.
So that answers the other question. Who taught you how to ride a bike? Was your dad?
Yeah, my dad.
What's something, because you went from running into the cycling, getting the bike from your neighbor, which you then bought. What's something that you would have wanted to tell yourself as you go back in time and talk to yourself about what's something outside of winning lottery numbers, and what would you share with yourself about the biking, if you could, when you were first getting that bike? What's something you would have? Yeah,
I would say that a good pair of cycling shorts is worth its weight in gold, man. Spend the money on a good pair of cycling bibs.
Okay. Did you go through lots of different
pairs
of bibs? Yeah.
I went through a lot of garbage. Because you find these deals and you're like, oh, it seems like a great deal. Well, it's a great deal because it's not that good.
Yeah, you're paying for what you get. Yeah.
So that, finally finding a good pair, you're just like, man, this is legit. This
Okay.
is the way it is. And yeah, that was a big thing. And then after that, just telling myself you're going to spend a lot of money. Get used to it now because everything costs so much money.
Right. Yeah. And then you spend some more money on the same stuff.
I know,
yeah.
exactly. I learned that too after bike commuting and realizing that I needed, I was buying gear for year round riding. I was doing that a little bit with that tri group because we, on the off season of marathon running, we'd finish a marathon and we'd still ride through the winter to the next training. Okay. We'd try to ride year round. So I accumulated, some cold weather gear early on. And, that's one thing beautiful about Richmond.
Yeah.
You can ride year round and it's fine.
Yeah. It doesn't say, the temperature
doesn't stay that
right.
bad.
Doesn't stay terrible forever.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. When did you start commuting to work?
It was in 2018 also.
Okay.
Just before I jumped on to Zwift. Okay. I think
was this like, let me just give this a whirl and just try the commuting out to work? Like,
yeah. So, oh my gosh, what was the driving factor for commuting?
I'm not going to fill up the gas tank. I'm just going to
Well, I know. So my wife and I both at the time, both worked at VCU Medical Center.
Okay.
And that was about right around 6 miles, almost exactly 6 miles from the house. Mm-hmm. And we both had a parking pass to the parking deck that's connected to the hospital, which happens to be the most expensive parking lot there. Mm-hmm. And so we're both paying, we both have a pass. And I think it came down to every year, well, maybe even less than that, every 6 months we were getting emails saying that, hey, your parking rate is going up. And I think after a while we were like, when we actually looked at how much money we were shelling out for 2 passes, we're like, why don't I just ride my bike to work? Yeah. And I think there was something like that. It was just off the cuff. We're just like, maybe I should just ride my bike. Yeah. And so then I had to think of logistics. Like that's all it really was, is just figuring out, okay, if I did that, where would I put my bike? Do I need to go to do I need a shower facility if I get there? If it's hot, what gear do I need there? And once I figured that out, I was like, man, it is so nice because it clears your mind. It's actually if my wife left at a house and I left at the same time, we almost get there the exact same time because me going straight to the back of where my office is and locking and going right up versus my wife driving, negotiating traffic, going to the deck, walking up from the deck all the way to it's almost the exact same amount of time because I can go straight to where you have to go. And at the end of the day, it's so nice to just go outside and have that little escape. That 25 minutes of just, and with the pandemic, I think more and more people got used to bikes being on the road. I'm sure you've noticed that, Trey. And I get way more. When I first started, you got those every so often. You got a crowder that would beep at you or whatever. It is very, very, very infrequent. Yeah. I can't remember the last time I had someone beep at me. Yeah. It's just really, it's really nice to feel that and see that. So I don't think I'll go back. Okay.
That's nice. I work from home, so I don't have to commute anywhere. Which is great. But I did, when I joined my company, I lived in Church Hill, and so I thought about that. I'm like, okay, I know I can ride the distance. Yeah. Can I commute to work? And we had a shower, and so I started plotting that out. And then the pandemic happened because it was like November of 2019, I joined the company, and then March pandemic. Yeah. So I work from home, no commute at all. 10-foot commute, kind of thing. Because you are quite well-versed with Zwift, rather. What would you want to tell people about Zwift? What's something, if someone's like,
Yeah.
maybe I want to try this indoor thing, like what's something you'd want to tell somebody about Zwift?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about Zwift is that there are so many different things you can do on there, right? You can just go on there and just ride.
Yeah.
You can just pick a random route and just ride, and you can chat with people. Like one thing that blew my mind is that you can pick a ride, any ability level, and you get in there and you're talking about, you know, whatever with people all over the world.
Yeah.
And I remember chatting to these guys about, you know, in Australia, what's going on there, chatting to guys in Europe and what's going on there. And it's just like, it brings the world together.
Yeah.
And then if you want to work out, you can do the workouts.
Yep.
If you want to, it's just, it has something for whatever you're looking to do.
Okay.
Like if I get up and I'm like, I want to ride easy.
Yeah.
I can ride easy. I want to hammer. I can choose whatever you want to do. So I feel like if you have the setup or have some sort of setup that you can get started on it, you can get a workout.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you can get your heart rate up and you can be fit and you can do it any time of the day.
Yeah. Lots of variety on Zwift.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you definitely, if you want to crush yourself, you can, or you can just easy pedal for a couple miles.
I mean, we do all this stuff. We do this racing. I'm on this team. In the end, it is, you know, it's a video game. And we realize that, you know? And so you're on this video game, but you're getting fit and you're healthy.
Yeah.
And you're getting motivated and you're trying to get better.
Yeah.
And it's just an avenue to do that. And there's just so many, they've expanded and are doing what they're doing. And there's something for everyone on there, everyone. To the elite, you know, USA Cycling guys, the Premier League.
Yeah.
These guys are legit, unbelievable with what they do, all the way down to, you know, people that are just trying to rehab or just move around, little bit of movement or whatever. There's something for everybody. It's awesome.
And I know a few people that have use Zwift as a recovery tool. Like they can't go outside and ride, but they can on Zwift because you don't need your hand, you know, to do that on there. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because you know I want to get more people riding on Zwift.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd want to share to someone who's just thinking about getting into cycling? Period.
I liked so with my background in running and that sort of thing, I realized, you know, through the years, running it, you know, for me, it kind of beat me up over the years, you know, and I realized that getting into cycling and doing cycling, the low impact or very minimal impact that it has, it is super beneficial and you can still get your heart rate up really, really well. And get an unbelievable workout. When you finish and you see the pool of sweat underneath you, you're like, yeah, I did something today. So, and then, you know, riding outside, just like we talked earlier, the meeting people and going places and doing rides, and, you know, there's rides all over the place. So I just feel like it is a very inclusive type sport that you can find something out there that kind of fits what you're looking for, or someone that is in the same similar ability level.
Do the same kind of riding,
So you don't have to have a membership or anything. You just need a bike. You know, that's a little bit more than a pair of shoes, which what it used to be for running. But for longevity, you know, biking is a little easier to do. For me, I mean, I credit cycling for helping me recover from my Achilles issues. Now that I mean, it was so bad I could hardly walk. I had a constant limp. And I probably should have had surgery, but I was like, I'm not doing that because I knew I liked biking, and that was kind of the gateway. And so when I went into cycling, I gave up running for a long time. And things got better and better, and I started running again. I was like, I'm not so bad. So now instead of biking being my cross train for running, now the running is a cross train for biking. So I kind of just flipped gears and this is more sustainable for me.
Well, good. Yeah, because we don't want any more Achilles injuries.
I think my body, has changed over to more of a cycling type. The strength, my quads and that sort of thing have grown, and my calves have shrunk a little bit. So those muscle groups are all building up, where the other ones are kind of going down a little bit.
Because it's interesting to see as your body changes from like being riding and being comfortable leaned over, and like because it doesn't look like it should be comfortable for hours, but then you adjust and like that's fine, I can be leaned over.
My flexibility on the bike has changed quite a bit from when I started. Almost to the point I every so often I think about I should probably get another fitting because I probably could have a little bit more of aggressive stance on the bike and probably be a little more aerodynamic, but
you gain a couple more.
Yeah, you gain a little bit. I'll just lean over a little more.
What's the power meter on your bike?
I have the Favaro Asimo. Love them. I've had those for probably a little over a year now, a year and a half, maybe.
Okay.
Well, maybe about a year.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah, those are great.
That's where I learned mostly about my right-left mismatch, my balance, where my left leg is a bit stronger. So I also see a massage therapist every monthly, and when I told her about the power meter, the right-left balance, she's like, and I said, I'm a little heavier on my left leg. And she's like, I could have told you that on day one. She's like, your left leg is a powerhouse compared to your right. It's like, how does that happen? Yeah. But anyway, it's that was kind of nice to see, but the accuracy of that power meter is just fantastic.
Oh yeah. No, it is great. I haven't used the Stage, but I use the Garmin Vector 3, and I know the battery issue that you talked about.
Yeah.
Mine replaced. I actually have a pair in a box because they don't want to use them. And so I have the Asimo Favaro Duo or
I think that's what it,
which are great.
They're good.
Travis, I want to thank you for sharing your story, man. And of course, I want to talk about Zwift all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm glad somebody else is like well versed and can like talk about Zwift.
Yeah.
So that was great. And your conversion from marathon running to riding. So I appreciate you sharing your story, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.